Welcome friends, in this video, let's begin by making a small database and then adding a table. Open up SSMS, Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, and then right click on the databases. Now on the left side over here, these are nodes. So the server is a node, the databases is a node, security is a node. Those are called nodes. All right, and notice that we have some databases here. Yours may be a little different. I have some ones that I've used for other purposes. So I'm going to right click on databases and just create a new database from scratch as the first stage. All right, and that brings up a panel like this one. In this panel, you configure some basic options. Well, first of all, take a look at these. You have some files. So you have the primary, and then you have the log file. Initial size 3 megabytes for one and 1 for the other. And notice that the primary one here will grow by 1 megabyte without limit. So as you add, for example, information to it, it will grow and grow and grow. And then log file grows by 10%, also unlimited. So it just grows and grows and grows. These two places here tell you where these are located. Okay? So that's the path, the location. All right. So put your cursor where mine is roughly, and let's type the database name. So to keep it very easy, call it whatever you want, but let's just say my dbase. And for the owner, just leave the default. That's fine for our purposes. We don't need to change that. Then just click OK. I'll leave the screen for a second. All right, click OK. This will take some time. And now look in the Object Explorer on the left side. You've got my dbase added. Expand that node. All right, and again, there are quite a few features here. So database is a pretty complex thing after all, as you see it here. What we're going to do is add a table. So notice this is the tables node. If you try to expand it, right, it's empty except for some system tables and file tables. There's some default stuff always stuck in, but we're not going to use that. So instead, right click on the tables node and click table from the menu that appears. All right, and here's where we define a table. Now clearly, as you can tell, that a database is a very complex structure. It's not just one table. And we're going to make our own table now. So where do we begin? Well, we can begin anywhere that we like. We'll keep it relatively simple so that it's easy to understand. So we'll have this first column, we'll call that an ID. And next is the business of a data type. That's the kind of data that you can stick into the column. Frequently, IDs are numerical quantities like 1, 2, 3. So we can indicate that by writing int, which is short for integer. And again, that nulls, where it says allow nulls, that means, for example, can that record and that cell be empty? And usually when you ID a row or a record, you don't want that empty. So do not allow nulls. All right. In other words, that information must always be provided. All right, let's add a couple other easy ones. So we'll have name. And now names can take a variety of forms. And there are quite a few different data types that we can use for this. So as an example, we can use this one, varchar and 50. That's good for our purposes. That means usually you can stick in a variety of characters and it works well. All right, and again, just to keep it consistent, we're going to have something in every single cell. So do not allow nulls. And the varchar 50 means that's a data type. And you can make it 50 wide. All right. And let's do one more here. So title. And again, this is like, for example, president, programmer, like your work title as an example. And again, to keep it simple, we'll make it varchar 50. So variable character 50, that's what it means. Okay, you can see store a variety of characters there. So this portion here, all we are doing, and let me also uncheck allow nulls. So in other words, every single thing must be provided when we actually fill the data in a second, okay? So here, let me just save this. And you can leave the default name of table_1, that's fine. Save, remember, here's the same as in other places. There's usually a little disk. It looks like an old-fashioned floppy disk. You click it and it saves. Up here across the top, okay? All right, at the next stage here, what we're going to do is the following. This business of an ID, I called it that because I want to use that field or that column name to identify each record. So to do that, I'm going to right click, and you see where it says set primary key. Set the primary key, like that. And notice a little golden key has appeared next to it. This is useful because this helps to identify each record, and it has a variety of uses, but for our purposes, we're just learning the very basics. So you set the primary key so you can identify each record uniquely. All right, make sure you save that again. So this is the structure of our table. And now the question is, where do you actually add the data? This is just the structure of the table. I'm going to close this and refresh the tables node. So right click on tables and then refresh it. All right, and notice that DBO dot table underscore one has appeared. The DBO is basically short for database owner. It's what we call a schema. It's basically a way of organizing information. And I'm going to leave it at that. That's a whole big topic. So then you've got the dot, and you've got the name of the table. Expand that node, expand the columns node, and you've got all of that stuff there. See, you've got the ID, and it says PK, primary key, integer, meaning the data type it stores, not null, means value must be entered. And you've got a name and a title column. So now let's enter some values into our table. So right click on the table, and you see where it says edit top 200 rows. Do that next. So we're editing the top 200 rows. And notice by default, it's completely blank, right? It just says null, value missing. That is what null means. So let's fix that up a little bit. We'll enter some names here. So for example, 1. And then for the name, I'm just going to make up a name. So John, and say he's the president of something. Doesn't really matter what. All right. Then I'm going to say 2. Next person, Mary. And then after that, say she's the vice president. And it's a good thing when you're designing tables, you want a field like name to just store one piece of information. You don't want to cram the first name, the last name, the title, all of those things together into a field, because then if you want to rearrange that information, it becomes very difficult. Usually, each field stores a single piece of information. That's it. So it's a clearly defined piece of information. It's much easier to put things together than separate them out when they're messy in a big entangled mess. All right, let's take a look here. So next person, I'm going to say Tom, and the title would be, say, programmer, and it looks like that. I'm going to expand this a little bit. All right, so everything fits. So this is the information. Okay, save this. So save it. All right, let me close it. And now we're going to make a small query. So click New Query up top, Control+N as a key combo. And I'm doing this in 2014, but these basics are the same whether it's 2014, 16, or 2017, same stuff. All right. And let's begin here. So the first stage is this one. I'm going to say use. And notice that this writing here is kind of small. So on the bottom left-hand side, within this query window, there's an option that allows you to enlarge things. I'm going to make it 200% better, right? You can see that. I'm going to say use, and I'm going to say my DBase, and then go. That simply means send that to the server for processing. Remember, the SSMS is the graphical user interface. The server is a separate piece of software, and we connect to the server through the SSMS that we're working in. And the go means submitted for processing. All right, we can do that bit first. Let's see. So once you have that, over here on the right side, in my case, you see where it says execute, you can press F5, and it runs it, and it says commands completed successfully. All right, so use my DBase Go, and let's display some information, our first step here, okay? So to do that, I'm going to say select, that's a clause, and then star. That means all of the columns, and then the from, and then I will say the name of the table. All right, so I'm going to say here table1 underscore. There you go. So select as a clause, that's star. When you hover your mouse over it, it tells you it represents the fields in the tooltip. From is another clause. All right, then you just highlight that and run it, hit execute. And notice on the bottom, we have the output. You have the ID column, we have the name column, and the title. Remember, this here, the ID is what we call a column or a field. The name is another column or field. The title is another column or field. Each of these items that goes from left to right or right to left is horizontal. We call that a record. And a record, as you can see, consists of fields. Okay? That's it. Click on the Messages tab and you see it says 3 rows affected. It doesn't mean that anything has been affected. It simply means you've got 3 rows showing on the screen. That's it. Simple step. Now, because we have the star present, notice that all of the information is shown. Of course, it should be possible to restrict the output also. So what we're going to do is the following. And again, that results grid is a little bit smaller. Remember, you can change that. You go to Tools, Options, and you see where it says Grid Results. Right now it's set to 15. You can make it 20 if you like. Click OK. And that's one of those things you can bring into action, but you got to restart SSMS. So this basically, I'm going to add a comment here. Comments are indicated by typing this. You can type a dash and notice it's green, and I'm going to number it. So for example, this means select all columns from our little table. That's all. Next, as my second comment, remember they're green. Comments are green. They're not executable code. Those are just annotations, so you understand what it means. That's all. I'm going to say select only the name and title columns. To accomplish that, you type the following: select that clause, that's what it's called, and then I'm going to make a list. So I'm going to say, for example, name, comma, title. And then from, that's the next clause, and then the name of the table. So when you run this, you observe the big difference. Hit execute. Remember, that's F5 on your keyboard if you like that, or you hit up on the top and it shows only the name and the title. So we've restricted our output here to only 2 columns. And one more thing that's useful here is this one. You can run this code with the debugger. Debugger is useful because it shows you the execution of everything line by line. So take a look at what I mean here. I'm going to go to debug. I'll highlight this line, go to debug, and then click step into. All right. And this is useful because when it gets complex, you can step through the code line by line by line, and you can control it much more and understand what's happening much better than without it. So it's a useful feature. And to terminate this debugger process, take a look. Look at where my cursor is. You see? It says continue. Then there's a little blue square button that says stop debugging. And there's a next one that says step into. The step into means go on to the next line, to the next line, to the next line. For our purposes, there isn't too much to do, so I'll just stop it. There you go. Let me close this output from earlier. And here we are. There you go. And then you might see output like this when you stop the debugger, you see? Okay, friends, that is it for this one. I'm going to close the panel on the bottom. I'll see you in the next one.